Hello, I'm Jackie. I'm one of the churchwardens in the parish of St Peter, Woking. During these times that we live in, I've newly discovered a love of walking more. I've enjoyed doing this walking, both before and after work, and around the research park at the back of the hospital where I work. Over the past weekend, I was spotted doing a walk. First by Pauline, as she and I met on the pathway where the wildlife sanctuary is. Next by Jeff, who was armed with a newspaper and biscuits ready for morning coffee. And finally by Sam. I was finishing my walk and he was kitted out ready for the next half marathon. I was frankly looking forward to a sit down and a nice cup of coffee by that stage. It's wonderful to see how many have discovered a love of walking over recent weeks and months, now that the lockdown has inspired this. I've driven to and from work, thanking God for the numbers of dads and sons, mums and dads and assorted children, and dogs, and other family configurations all enjoying each other's company, walking, jogging and cycling through early spring sunshine. There wasn't a lot of choice in biblical times, as Henry Ford isn't mentioned in the first few books of the Bible. Shanks's pony was the order of the day, and it seems to have been the Lord's first choice of transport too. He walked in the garden in the cool of the day in Genesis. Sadly for us, he found Adam and Eve were hiding from him, having eaten from the forbidden tree. From there, they had to walk away from Eden and into a life less certain and ultimately shortened because of their disobedience. After much suffering, the Israelites finally walked out of Egypt to what should have been a nice stroll to the Promised Land. Sadly, it became more like a Jeff walk, and if you've ever been on one of those, and I hasten to add, enjoyed them, you'll know exactly what I mean. The Israelites' disobedience and lack of trust saw them wandering through the wilderness for over 40 years. Yet the Lord journeyed with them throughout that time, as he does on a Jeff walk, I've no doubt. In the well-known Psalm 23 of David's, he talks about walking through the valley of the shadow of death. But even then, he feared no evil, as the Lord accompanied him in his journey. And how many folk at this time have needed that company in their journey of grief? The prophet Isaiah talks of a way of holiness being there. It's called the way of holiness, and the unclean shall not pass over it. It shall belong to those who walk on the way, and encouragingly for me, even if they are fools, they shall not go astray. In the New Testament, Joseph and Mary find themselves walking from Galilee, from a town of Nazareth, to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem. Henry Ford, by the way, doesn't make it into the New Testament as well at this point. Jesus does much walking in his ministry, to, in and from the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights, to find future disciples at their places of work, or even spotting them whilst they sit under trees. He walks to weddings, dinner parties, even funerals. He encourages and encounters crowds following him. He has blind men calling to him, men of authority seeking him to heal their children, folk caught in the grip of evil, freeing them, women sick and ostracized by the society of the day, healing them and bringing them back into communion with family and friends. He walked away from villages that rejected him, up mountains to be transfigured, and on water to join his friends in a boat. Now I grant you, he does hitch a lift on the foal of a donkey to travel into Jerusalem, but he then walks into temples and up to moneylenders, past unproductive fig trees, through the streets of Jerusalem, upstairs to upper rooms. He walks in gardens to pray. He walks with soldiers who bind him, He walks to councils and authorities who judge him, and past friends who betray him. He walks to instruments of torture that will hurt him. He carries a piece of wood that will crush him. He walks up a hill from which he will not walk down. But of course that's not the journey's end, for in 3 days he walks in a garden again to meet loved ones who have not forgotten him. He accompanies weary travellers as they go home to Emmaus. He walks into locked rooms which cannot hold him, and by lakes to cook breakfasts for hungry fishermen. Finally, he walks up a mount with his friends and disappears from their sight. His friends, on the other hand, have a Sabbath day's walk back to Jerusalem to wait. But wait for what? Not the sound of footsteps, that's for sure, but the sound like a mighty rushing wind, accompanied by tongues of fire, which separate and settle on each one of them. Jesus has sent his Spirit to walk into hearts which are incomplete without him. I now imagine the disciples not walking but rushing out into the streets of Jerusalem, speaking in every kind of language, stopping only as Peter addresses the great multitude. And what a day that would have been to walk in Jerusalem. It didn't end there either. Peter and John go for a walk to the temple at the hour of prayer. A man, lame from birth, is being carried to the beautiful gate to beg. And Peter says to him, "Silver or gold I do not have, but what I have I give you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, get up and walk." The man's helped to his feet, and he springs into action. He goes into the temple courtyard, walking, leaping, and praising God. So there's been a revival in walking during our time. Perhaps too a revival in seeking and searching for something or someone during this time. Could it be there is revival in our time? My prayer is that this season, with all its sadness, is not a wasted one, but one where the Lord will encourage each and every one of us to slow down and walk with him. Walk as he passes the man in the street, or walks round a supermarket, walks round a park or an open space, walks towards a cry for help in whatever shape that cry may take. Walks past brothers and sisters whom he is also walking with, through nature reserves, or whether they carry papers and biscuits home for a morning cup of tea, or those just yearning for a run. But remember, Sam, even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. God bless.